For a little background, it's a paranormal fantasy involving vampires. If you like Twilight vampires, you won't like this book. It's kind of a horror story. Sorry. I sparkle, but I don't like sparkling, Alright, it was a strange thing. Oh, that's the wrong one. You don't want that, Jeff.
Woman after my own heart.
He always loved to play the organ. It was a trait Charlotte never understood. It seemed to her that a man so disconnected from life had no business knowing how to play such beautiful music. For 10 years of her unlife, the organ sat in his den like the old skeletal remains of his human self, stretched out like a macabre shrine to the outdated religion of life. Even when he brought her in the room, it sat behind him silently, a prisoner to his body run amok. It was a long time before she would hear it moan. She remembered it perfectly, the deafening silence of the halls had suddenly come to life with the furious weeping of the organ in the corner. At first it had been slow, a wail of contempt and loathing that soon evolved into a monster of angry protests and condemnation. With a blind curiosity born out of broken routine, Charlotte followed the music until she saw what looked like a man leaning over his own corpse, trying desperately to swell its bony limbs with flesh again. His hair had fallen in front of his face in pointed strands, slick with pomade. It made her think of a cage, like thin, rusted fingers jutting out from his own skull were trying to tear him away from his task. He leaned forward, his fingers strangling the wails from the organ like a madman. His usually perfect tie was undone and his eyes blazed. Charlotte stared with all the sick fascination of a scientist watching her patient tear the legs off spiders. She wondered what had turned him into the thing he was today. How many horrible things had compounded in his brain to turn him into this husk of a man, fighting to scream when he no longer remembered how. He pressed the ivory keys, and with all the haste of a man struggling to stay alive, but even as he did, the agonizing life that gasped from the organ was nothing but the afterburps of a life from a corpse whose body had not yet succumbed to rot. He roared then, his own frustration in tune with the sounds of his instrument, and Charlotte jumped despite herself. For a brief moment, Price seemed saddened, like a doctor watching a failed patient slip grossly into death. Picking himself up, he turned his back to her, and in one fluid motion he righted the hair that had come undone. As quick as that, the organ had become a prisoner again, ignored like a servant. Charlotte felt her words cement in her throat as he turned towards her, his face as blank as the surface of all 61 keys. He didn't seem displeased by her presence. It was as though he had predicted that she would come eventually. As time goes by, we all deal with the tragedy of our own lives in different ways, he paused, seeming as though he wanted to hesitate longer, but he continued. You killed your parents. In a future where you find you no longer care how brutal it may have been, how gory or how visceral, perhaps you could take up needlework to impress some other feeling you don't remember. Then he looked back to the organ. A hobby of the heart, maybe? Though we're dead, so it's more like pickling it. In a moment, Charlotte understood. And that simple understanding seemed more terrifying than glancing into the empty chest cavity of her own mother. Price was struggling to stay alive. Those means he wanted his life back again. And even as he pumped on the keys of that old organ, he knew that he was only slipping farther into second death. It would happen with her as well. Charlotte, once a singer, once a defiant youth who disobeyed the customs of society and enrolled in a school dominated by men, would die a second death too. It just took longer for vampires. She watched Price, watched the usual smirk fill his face, and she knew that she too would be nothing but a body, floating through the veins of humans one day. She thought of Jerome, of all the fighting, of all the life they had had when they were together. For the last time, Charlotte had cried, and she remembered Price looking at her as she did, a mix of envy and black amusement on his face. My music can install life in me, but in you it brings tears? Does death frighten you or the lingering smell of it? He laughed, sitting there at his desk as he pulled out a large cigar and cut it. Charlotte Swan, he began, lighting the end and watching the cloud of smoke fill the air between them. I feel your name defies you, he grinned, leaning back. Thanks to me, you'll forever be the ugly duckling. I hate you, she pulled back, and he leaned forward, his face a prodigy of marvel. Of course you do. He tapped on the desk in emphasis. Never forget it was my fault that you devoured your own parents. Don't forget. I stole you away from all your stupid, insignificant dreams. Hold on to that feeling, Dove, because hate is the easiest thing to remember. And if you don't keep it inside you, someday you won't even have that. Price sat back again, fingering the length of his cigar. People call us immortal, he mused. But I prefer to refer to it as malignancy. Like a soldier who's lost his arm at war, it'll take you some time to realize what you don't have anymore. Hold on to that ghost-limbed duckling. He smiled, watching as she wiped away her tears. He wondered what eyes with water felt like, how they tasted. He could recall the word salt, but not its taste. And go back to bed. The sun will be up soon. Charlotte had, and the next morning the organ had disappeared from the den. She wondered if Price mourned the loss of it. She didn't think so, but she wondered if he had hoped he would.